Well, hello, model car fans. Welcome to the Muscle Car Modeler. My name is Ral, and here we're gonna look at some history here. You guys know I love my history and I love my model cars and stuff like that, but I didn't think I would have anything like this on my channel or run into anything like this. So we'll dive into what's in this crate here and the history of it. And if you guys know some of this stuff, maybe you recognize some of these labels here from the Fisher Body Craftsman's Guild here on this crate here. So if you guys are familiar with that. And I didn't know much about it. Before I really start to get into this, just a couple of things, disclaimers and stuff. This is not mine. I didn't build it. It just sort of landed in my lap. And I have permission from the estate to share this with you as as a friend of mine, my coworker. His wife handles estates and everything, and she runs in some of the neatest stuff. So he shares with me some of the neatest things that they run into and they find in these estates. And there's always interesting history and just cool stuff. But when they got this, they immediately thought of me and was like, we got to share this around, get his opinion on it. And I'm glad he did, but I was like, wow, that's cool. And I dug a little more into the history because I didn't know much about the Fisher Body Craftsman's Guild. I had ran into the history before, but didn't really think too much about it because, and I never really thought I'd have one of these in my hands to actually share with you and everything. So let's get into this and get a little bit into the history of the Fisher Body Craftsman's Guild here. This was a contest that GM was having through their Fisher Body division as far as finding. It was called the Greatest Talent Search, and that's an interesting way to actually do this. And it went as early, I guess, as 1922, all the way to 1968. I've read a couple of beginning dates here. I also saw 1931, but I think maybe that's when the competition actually started. But if you're familiar with the Fisher Body emblem, it has a coach on it. Well, I guess the first things you got was the plans to build that coach. Now you can join the guild as a member, and there were tons of people that had done this. And as far as the guild was, it was the second biggest club at the time, really only rivaled by the Boy Scouts of America. So a huge club, but I mean these were done by teenagers. And it's just amazing to me to look at this and show you what's in here. I mean, you can. Here's a quick glimpse of it for now. I'm teasing you for a little bit here, but they're all very unique and they all have their own stories. And even this one kind of tells me a bit of a story because it has the crate, still exists, and never seen with a crate, and was digging more into this and what's going on. But the Fisher Body Craftsman's Guild, they were having reunions. I guess the last reunion was in October of 2024. But it says that was going to be their last one because all the members are pretty much dying off now. These were built by teenagers. And we're talking all the way till 1968. So the last competition was in 1968. If you were a teenager in 1968, you're in your 70s and 80s now. If you were a teenager in your 30s, chances are you're no longer with us. So yeah, that's the case with this particular one, and that just blows my mind here. Now, getting into this one, now I'm gonna put some links to the videos about the Fisher Body. There's one that's just, to me, it's literally a 16-minute commercial of like 1940 of these and what you could win as a teenager, because it was only teenagers that could enter, anywhere from 12 to 19 years of age, and it was two groups. You had the junior division, which was 12 through 15, I think, and then the senior class, which was up to the 19, whether it's 15 to 19 or whatever it was. But that was, they had two classes, and you competed with your state. So there was winners in every state, and you won, prize money, you won trips, you won scholarships to colleges, and the college you chose, we're talking $4,000 or $5,000 scholarships in the 30s and 40s. That was a lot of money, and you didn't have to go to GM design school or become. And if you won the competition, the scholarship money was whatever you wanted to apply it to, which I think that was cool. Now this thing, don't know if he was a winner or not. I have no idea. The fact that it has the name on it too, because this was built by Adolph Southard here, and the address in Kansas here. And then it was also, there's no date anywhere on the shipping labels on here. So it's got, the label on the side, and, 3 of the sides have this label on it. And then, that side as well. And then this side has the trucking company here, or the freight company, what was done by Railway Express Agency. The dates are gone. Some of the moths have eaten the labels and whatnot, but it was some of the stuff's handwritten. And right on the cover here it says property of A.O. Southard, shipped to Phoenix, Arizona from August 27th of 1952. So apparently that's about when he moved to Phoenix, Arizona. Don't know a whole lot about Adolph Southard, but I do know, like many people before the war, using that name was not really a big deal. But after World War II, if your name was Adolph, most people dropped their name and changed it. So I completely understand why it says Adolph Southard and then it says A.O. Southard after, in 1952. But I could pull up some records on an Adolph Southard. Matter of fact, here's the best match I had. I do not know 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure this is who it is. It says Adolph Otto Southard, born 3/28 of 1918 in Columbia, Missouri, U.S. citizen, and died January 7th, 1998, at the age of 79. There are census records that are easy to pull up on Ancestry that shows that he lived in Kansas, and also shows Phoenix, Arizona in 1950 and 1960 records as well. The 50 records actually show both, so showing 1952 kind of makes sense. Because if they did the census in 1950 and then, found out later, I don't know if they amended it or whatnot. And also there's a World War II draft card for him as well in that, but I don't have full access, full membership to Ancestry to see some of the other records that were in there. I could see his bio there, from his death, where it shows a little bit about him, talked about him. Basically, it just says he's a retired airline agent, which, so it's interesting. It doesn't really say if he was actually in the military or any military service as far as that goes. And I wasn't digging too far into it. But based on the dates, it answers some of my questions, because looking at the styling of this, I knew this was, 30s, maybe 40, as far as the styling goes. And it stands out. So when I get it out of the crate, which I will in a minute here, but I'm going to readjust the camera and everything when I get it out of the crate. But I'll get it out here in a second. We'll do all that. But him being born in 1918, that means he was a teenager in 1931 to 1938. Now, when they did the competition, they started with the futuristic cars in 1937. So this would be one of the first years of that. And I can find cars of this online. Most of them are from the 50s and 60s as far as that. Not too many from this time period. So I'm going to get this out of here and I'll move the crate. But we'll talk about the crate just here in a little bit. Let's see here. We'll set this down right here. But looking inside the crate, I think this is a handmade crate or some repurposed crate, because it's got these pins that slide into the thing to hold it. It's marked front and rear, so it's definitely designed to hold this thing and not let it move. And I'll show you the underside. You can kind of see, I don't know if this crate was repurposed or built, but he definitely did that to it to hold it. And on the other side, the lid, it has this pad that's put in there to keep it from bouncing around, and rests on the top here. So that definitely holds it. So I'm going to put this back over here on this crate here, and we'll slide this under here. Well, while I got the camera, this is one large chunk of wood. I mean, I could flip this over here. I'll do it here real carefully. You can see the holes drilled into it, the block of wood here, and you can see like the sawdust glued in here, and some of the filler work and carving, whatever he did to carve it. Now, from the Craftsman's Guild, they didn't really send you anything, just plans, and you had to, procure the materials at your local hardware shop and everything. So let me readjust the cameras, go to a different angle here, and we'll get right back to it here. Well, here it is out. I put it on my little rotisserie here to be able to spin it and everything, because this thing, it's a bit huge, a little dirty and dusty. Try not to handle it too much, which is why I got these gloves on, because there's total respect here for something that isn't mine in the history and everything. So I'm trying not to mess with it too much, and I'm worried about knocking anything off. But I look at this thing in amazement and think, what it was like to build this, what you had. I mean, you didn't go to the hobby store. I don't think they even had hobby stores. You didn't buy spray paint. There was no, pre-made parts here. I mean, this is literally blocks of wood that were carved and shaped here. And the idea was to come up with your own concept car, and what you think the cars of the future are going to look like. And that's what this is. Now, first thing when I see this thing and I was looking it over, there's one thing seriously jumped out at me of this thing being rear engined. Of course, the Tucker was rear engine. There was a couple other rear engine cars. A lot of concepts in the late 30s were rear engine or messing with engines and whatnot. But there's one car that this thing just jumped out at me, and it was kind of a concept at the time or just becoming available. If you guys know what a 1936 Stout Scarab is, put some video pictures up of one of those. That was a car that came out of that time, and it's considered the first minivan. When I saw this, that's what jumped out in my head, is that car right there. And I'm no expert of that time frame, but that's what I see here is that car. Now, whether or not Adolf copied some of that or went with that, but to see some of the stuff like these vents here, and then what he used, wire or something right here for the grating here. We got door handles, look like pieces of tin that were hammered or nails. All 4 door handles. We got license plate in the front bumpers here with the springs and the plate mount and the front the frunk handle that's there. Headlights that fallen off. Whatever this V-shaped piece is, I don't know if he made that. I'm assuming he did. The windows, the cracked paint here. What kind of paint? I mean, it's not like you can go buy spray paint from back then. All these little pieces and details here, it's just amazing. And the taillights and the grill work painted here, this just blows me away to see this and to think, this isn't stuff that you just went to the store and bought. Whatever you used to fill this in and paint it, brush painted the windows, carved them in a little bit. The door, they're all carved. And it's kind of funny, seeing the pitchfork door handles there. If you can see that, get a little closer to the camera here. I'm just a little kind of nervous here. Those door handles and that grating right there. That's just some cool stuff here. And this thing's kind of heavy, and it's a big scale too. It's like 1/12 scale. From what I understand, it's leaning over. I got it just sitting on something to space it up because the wheels hang down a little more than my rotisserie. But this thing is just cool, and it just amazes me to think. And this gentleman, they held on to it for all those years, and then he passed away in 98. And I don't know if that's where the gentleman that had it got it from, or from what I understand, the collection, this particular estate, lots of die-cast cars and a lot of car memorabilia and that kind of stuff. But this thing just really stood out to them. They didn't know much about it, and the crate and everything. But to see this, and whether or not I don't believe that he is the estate that this came from is related to the actual builder. So I mean, if you think about it, AO would be 106 today. If he was still alive, 106, 107. Being March of 18. So yeah. He would definitely be up there if he was still alive today. But this thing, it's just flat out cool and blows me away. And to think about, how long this went on, and they literally, could take a year or more to build, because the contest was annual. It was every year, other than during the war. The contest was interrupted. So, this being, he was a teenager in, 37, 38. Um, that would have been pretty much, the only year he could have done this. And 37 was the first year for this. So I say this has got to be a 37 or 38 entry. And you really don't find entries this early online. There's a lot of pictures, a lot of information about the club, and a lot of the builds. A lot of the 60s ones are wild because they're wedges. You can see the 50s ones with fins and everything. But, this being the late 30s, early 40s, you can definitely see the concept car imagery in this one. With the, they were trying to get away with the, the fenders and the rockers going to molded bodies and everything. So that's what the time frame was going to. But this thing is just super cool, and I just really wanted to share it with you guys and see if you guys really like the history and looking at something like this, and just imagine, the builder and what it took and what tools were at his disposal. Were there routers, handheld, grinders and stuff? Was it just strictly, sanding and chiseling, and what they did to it? What's in here? Was there, polyester filler? I don't think was around back then, but what did he use for filler? Glue and wood chips, it seems like, on the inside. It just blows my mind thinking about, what was there. There was no model hobby at the time to do this, but I mean, total craftsman. I mean, you talk about scratch building, this is definitely scratch built. So that's what makes this, to me, completely interesting. And it's really, it's something that's hard to put a price on. I'm real curious if there is a price to it, but the history on there is just out there, and they're trying to preserve the history of the guild. And matter of fact, there's some museums that have some displays of these. Matter of fact, one of the websites mentioned that the Piston Palace has some of these on display. National Route 66 Museum has some. National Automotive and Truck Museum. The AACA Library and Research Center in Pennsylvania, and also even the Peterson Museum in Los Angeles has some of these. And I understand, combined, it's something like 150 of these entries are preserved in the museums. Personally, I think that would be cool if this one ended up in a museum, especially with the crate and the story of the builder, or what do we know of the builder, stays with it. That would be really cool. But who knows what the future is going to hold for this. But this thing's just, to me, it's just amazing to be able to share this with you. And there's a spider web sack right there. I haven't really cleaned this, and I'm trying not to touch it or anything, but it's just really cool. And just to think, what it was like to be alive in that time frame, and the possibilities and what you could have won and everything. But yeah, check out those videos. I'll have links right on there that you can click on, that'll share some of the videos, and you can just start to search Fisher Body Craftsman Guild. You could pull up a bunch of individual ones like this, and some of the stories, and just about the club itself and everything, which is just totally cool. But thank you guys for tuning in, subscribing, and all your comments and everything. I do really appreciate it. And thanks to my friends for sharing this with me and giving me the permission to share it with you. That's really cool. And we'll see what happens with this. And I'll be returning it, but still just really cool. And you guys, thank you for watching and subscribing, and all your comments and everything. And you guys, you have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you next time.